Up next, we have Joel Flynn.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to need a few minutes here so we can go over something that is not necessarily as related to AI and film type stuff. I'm a sound guy, not a sound engineer. I'm a guy who sings songs. You might have seen me at the Christmas party singing some Bublé songs. And so I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different tact and also play back to my work as an academic, as a media researcher, and the work that I'm doing in that relationship that I think will provide some methodological framework for you to look at what you're doing with all these models and tools and things like that. So bear with me and indulge in this.
You're ready to rock, sir.
Yes, here we go. Okay, so what you have up here is a menu. It's a menu of menus. These are a bunch of playlists, a bunch of designed set lists that I use for my performances. And I did that because as somebody who does a lot of karaoke and uses a lot of backing tracks, you always you can get different audio levels. You can get things that don't quite work right. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to go and create these nicely designed menus of songs, like prefix menus, if we're going to use a metaphor from culinary world, that will allow me to pull off these shows in wherever place I end up. So this is a menu of menus. And in these menus, these are all up on Vimeo, and where I'm using the audio channels to have not only the instrumental tracks, but also the vocal tracks, the karaoke versions, and I've used a lot of AI to do the separation of instrumentals and vocals, so you can actually hear what the AI programs are doing when they're trying to interpret what a voice is and what isn't a voice. And I'll get back to an example of this. So my relationship with the AI world here comes from Clear LED. We had those big, nice screens in the Multimodal Media Lab, which are moving into the new space, I believe. And so we'll get those set up again. And I was thinking about doing something relating to those screens. Kevin asked me if I want to do something to talk about sound. And I thought about, okay, well, how can I provide some insight into what I do and how I work with sound, not as a technician, but in terms as a performer and as a remixer and a media artist. So, one sec here. So, Jin Fan, the founder of Clear LED, was one of my students 20 years ago at SFU. And I had her in a course about branding and about design and about personal brands. This was back in the days of the J.Lo perfume as the epitome of a branded personal product. And look at where we are now. We've got everything from Michael Bublé's bubble water to Trump steaks and all that stuff. So here we are 20 years later. But we reconnected not long ago as I'm doing my PhD research. There's some stuff related to what she was doing with Clear LED that fit with what I was doing. I ended up singing songs for the Christmas party, and now I'm the R&D guy with Clear LED and able to field questions around those screens, which we don't have here, but you'll see them at the next session. So Kevin asked me to do something around sound. I thought about maybe I should show how I actually go about deconstructing tracks. How do I go grab tracks from different sources in these karaoke systems? I know it's not really related to AI, but when you don't have the song that you need, we do now have the tools to be able to create those things. So the point was not to get so much into the tools themselves, but there is one application that I use quite a bit, and it's an application called Soundtrap. It's an online DAW where I've taken that world and mashed it up with karaoke tracks so I can go in and do remixes and do vocal takes and create this world where suddenly my imagination starts to get going. And this is the key point. When you have those types of worlds, those types of frames that you see value, you see ways of playing around, ways of your imagination being able to go into directions you didn't think possible, those things in an academic sense are called tertiary artifacts. And they often involve metaphors. Metaphors that help you understand different insights to different experiences that you might not have directly, but you can connect with. And in my work with media, a metaphor that I use is, one is the culinary metaphor, which you have menus of menus up here. Also is fishing. So these are not necessarily related, but how do you catch a fish? To me, that's a song. How do I catch a song? How do I record it? How do I perform it? How do I put my hands around that thing, prepare it, and actually be able to deliver it to somebody, serve the song? So with that, let us decant the tin. If you know this online reference, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is in the background of my work is this thing called disruptive innovation. Clayton Christensen, Disruptive Innovation, The Innovator's Dilemma. In this book, he came up with this model called RPV, Resources, Processes, Values. I thought there's something that connects to this other side of my work, this three-part model of resources, processes, and values relates to a framework for how we deal with culture in terms of three levels: primary, building block artifacts, resources, objects; secondary, arrangements of those things, recipes, instructions, algorithms, workflows, pipelines, you guys call them in your terminology. And then at the top level are tertiary artifacts. How do you frame the systems in which you're working in? How do the objects interact with each other? How do you create value out of these spaces? And that came out of this book, Seeing What's Next. If you want to know more about tertiary artifacts, from where they come from, this is like academic stuff, but very, very important, I found, in terms of representation and scientific thinking and looking at models. And here we are in this world of models, models, models. How do we make those models work together? Let's take an example of a building block, QR code. Okay, it's the most commodified type of thing we probably have in our digital space. We don't even know what this does or where it goes, but we can replace them with a different code. We can change the link to a different link. We can change the relationships between these building blocks and other objects just by swapping out this square. This square takes you to an app. An app is a value frame. It's a tertiary artifact. It contains objects, contains processes, it contains spaces where you can play around. This app is it's a new app that my partner and I developed because I needed a request system for a gig I was doing at Christmas and then at New Year's. So this app, this frame, contains the songs in which I interact with and which others interact with by request, and can even provide a tip. So it created a value proposition around what I can do to better engage audiences in the role that I have. I can create specifically designed playlists or set lists for each of the shows that I'm doing. For example, I had an AC December set list for one of my shows. I had a Super Bowl, another Super Bowl, another Irish-related thing. So the ability to take the building blocks and contain them in another playlist allows you to create more value out of the relationships. This is another type of tertiary artifact. This is the space that I was recording in. It was a podcasting studio. It turned into a brand out of that studio object. But it became this space where I could imagine going in, getting the work done, coming out of there, putting the headphones on. It's an imagination space, a tertiary artifact where you can connect things and play around and create new types of value. And this led to, in this last little bit, reviving that course that I taught years ago at SFU around branding and turning it into something that I've now integrated the podcasting and the audio elements in order to create this idea of voice and persona and the tertiary artifact of being able to play in these spaces. And that mindset is an experimental mindset. How do you go into a space to try to understand something new, try to figure out what's happening in this space? This idea of being a scientist is its own tertiary artifact. It's its own framing device of value. And you can switch those framing devices out to come up with new types of value, to understand problems from different spaces, different perspectives. Because it's an AI film club, I had to make a reference to an old film. I'm not sure if you know Altered States, but it's that type of where anyway, I won't get into the details of that film. It's a pretty fun one, but I wanted to make a film reference for you. And actually, funny enough, yesterday in a podcast, the film came up. I wasn't even paying attention. Suddenly there's a quote from the film. It's a whole podcast on the film, so that was just an overlap. But here we are to Soundtrap. This is the online digital audio workstation that became this tertiary artifact for me, this space of play, this value frame. What we did here was took a recording of a place that I was playing outdoors, took the AI to the recording of my vocals, and then layered it back in with the backing tracks that I was singing to that day, and it created a neat effect, which I'll show you in a sec. All these projects that are up on Soundtrap, they can all be linked to, they can all create a larger system leading back into that app that I showed you earlier that I developed. All of these projects can be linked to create a much bigger system that opens up new possibilities in terms of maybe I'm going to have an AI agent to be able to call up and say, play this song, or go to this part, or play this stem, or play this part of it. We'll see where it goes, but that's... And okay, so the day after the Christmas party, I went out and did a recording in the rain in my neighborhood. There's gigs that go on up there. I get paid to go out and sing, and I'm not going to say no to that. So I went out, I used these old recorders that I had. Yeah, like it's an old iPod Nano. Dug it up from the archives. And I went out and recorded this set, and then took the recording of that set, put it into the AI vocal separator, and it created some neat effects in terms of listening to the kind of space that provides when you're in the headphones. It's like, wow, this has a Pink Floyd kind of weird quality because it's picking up conversation and different things that it's trying to determine what's a voice and what isn't. So we'll play that for you right now. Do a little sample of it.
All right, here we go. Line this up. It is a wet day, Christmas time. So we're gonna take this on anyway. We're going fishing today. It was a wet day. Fish some songs. And now we're gonna switch things over to a little Neil Diamond. Holy, holy eyes.
And I've turned a lot of these videos, these backgrounds, into lyric videos. Not this one, but they've become more functional tools for me to pull up at any time. And I can switch to only the instrumental version, or to only my voice in there, or to Neil Diamond's actual vocals in there. So it becomes a comparative tool to see the effects of the technology as it's working through the problems. So anyway, that comes from this little corner in Canby Village. You might see me singing there, doing experiments out in the wild, trying to understand the world from the technologies that we have to interpret the world with. And if you want to hire a singer for any of your parties, let me know. I'm available to do so.
Thank you so much, Joel. I love the abstract way that you're approaching audio using all of your experience and expertise, and obviously, like real-time immersion in the sound field. It's a really cool framework to start playing around with different modalities in and of themselves. And that Soundtrap platform looks really cool for getting some cool mixes together, and using those separation kind of pieces as well is super important for just getting the ingredients, right?
Yes, it's you can take it as deep as you guys want to go with it, because I know that the level of expertise that you can have in that environment is beyond what I'm doing with it. But the idea is that this application and this application, if you can find the ways that they come together, it can open up a lot of value for other things you don't even realize you needed the tool for. And so to have this metaphor, I mentioned the metaphor of fishing. The way that I sometimes look at the world that I'm working in is in terms of having a tackle box of lures and flies and things that I need to go capture a song. Whatever whether that's a song in the studio or out singing at an event or things like that, how do I capture that song? So to be able to look at the tools you're working with and see the connections between them, that's when the value starts to open up. And that's what's happening with the AI stuff, that ability to really visualize how these pieces are working together in ways that we haven't anticipated yet. So,
a fine methodology for play. Thank you very much, Joel. Really appreciate it. Hit 'em up with your questions afterwards.